Yeah, so this is all days, right?
So the main midah is chesed, but you have all the midas.
No, is that אבל על כל פנים, הכל הוא המידס לפי זה.
Everything always is chagas. In the thousands of years, in the months and weeks and days, all the time you have midas. He does not say each day. Each day is two, but over here he say, אבל כל פעם הכל הוא המידות לחגה. He's talking about not about the days before. לכן כל שבוע ושבוע מחולקים באיזה מדרגה הם המידות דחסד וגבול. אבל כל פעם הכל הוא המידות לחגה.
So why not the other midas?
No, it's all the midas. His main, think you understand this.
שנמשך לכל יום ביום, הייתם נמנים ראשון שני ושלישי.
שנמשכים בכל יום ביום. על כן נמנים ראשון שני ושלישי. Yeah, כל יום, the name is counting. You count like יום ראשון, שני, שלישי. Each יום ראשון, חסד, שני,
This is all we have. So when we get rid of you guys, in the right time. Okay. The best that I recall, we are on the bottom of from the quarter from the bottom of page 192. The line begins with Reishis HaHispashtus. Confirm. So we're discussing now the Indian at Shabbos is stronger, is higher than all the other days, even though that is the end of the Yemei HaHekef, of the circle. And the explanation for that is that every Hamshocha becomes stronger at the very end of its Hamshocha. The reason for that is because at the end is emphasized the point of the whole Hamshocha, the beginning, why it all started up. And this is one Shabbos, there is the greater power of this cycle is expressed in Shabbos. Okay, v'zehu. V'zehu, and this is the pointing to the principle that we say, the gilui hatainug hu b'Shabbos dafka, that the tainug becomes revealed on Shabbos. Dafka means exclusively. And this principle, this is what we were discussing when we learned on Wednesday, the last year. That even though there is this circle, and the circle is a continuous circle going from one day, have to do with midas, chesed, gvura, tiferes, and so forth. But it all begins from a higher madriya, begins from chokhmah, and then ultimately the real chayas, the real impetus, the inspiration for the entire cycle is even higher than chokhmah. It's called tainug, and that tainug is what's revealed on Shabbos. This is what we're going to learn now, and we're going to discuss it more extensively. You recall what we discussed on Wednesday?
So this tainug is like number 8, or it's still in 7? Number 8?
Right. As we'll see in a minute. The hine iker hachayus v'hagdolos ho'er b'chol ho'es esfiros hu mehatayim. The principle, the central chayus, central inspiration that allows for the esfiros to increase comes from the tainug. And for this we have a moshel which is true also in the human being. The koiches hanefesh, the human faculties, the koiches, his ability to understand his seichel and his midas. So in the human being, the chayas, the excitement and the inspiration that's in the koiches, the hagdolas hakoyach, and that which makes the koyach greater and makes it grow, hu alidei hatainu. That is because of the tainug. Ukmei shonoroim b'muchos, and this is something which we onoroim, we can see b'muchos, we can actually, it's almost like something tangible. We can see it as if we are actually experiencing it. B'muchos, muchos means like tangible. The hagdolas hahaskola v'yisrachvusa, that haskola, any understanding, any insight, its growth and its expansion, hu alidei hatainug sheyesh le b'haseichel. It is caused and it is affected by the tainug that he has in the seichel. I want to finish the few lines. I talk about seichel and come back to understand this a little bit more tangibly. V'lochein, and for this reason, la'olam yilmid odom, the Gemara says a person should learn. This is a quote from the Gemara. La'olam yilmid odom. A person should always choose to learn the mokoim sheliboy chofetz, in that place where his heart desires. And the reason that he should learn the place that his heart desires is the kasher liboy chofetz behoinyan, that when his heart desires this inyan, yaskil v'yischakim boy, he will comprehend, and he will not. His chakim means he will be able to develop and find insights in it. Whereas if he does not have an oineg in this particular seichel, then his seichel would be very limited. Very limited. And that seichel to grow and expand and broaden out is only through the time. So let us try to focus in and identify the various terms over here. There is the seichel, then there is the growth of the seichel, then there is the expansion and broadening out of the seichel, and on top of that there is the tainuk. Seichel essentially is a logical expose, a logical presentation of an Indian, a concept. This is how seichel works. It works logically. It builds one thing on top of the other, on top of the other. And this logical build, if one gets a certain point, then the seichel shows, if this is true, then this is also true. And if this is true, then this is also true. And this is how he builds up a whole perspective, an understanding of how this Indian is. Let's take a simple thing. You're building a house. And you know that this house has to stand on the ground. And then you say, oh, it has to stand on the ground. How is it going to stand on the ground? It's going to stand because we're going to dig into the ground and make a foundation. That's logical. If you don't make a foundation, then the house doesn't have a way to stand on the ground. Even if you make the four walls, but it doesn't, it's going to be shaking. It has to build on the foundation. You know how to shut it up? Oh. To you it listens right away.
Mm-hmm.
To you it listens right away. Two ways to do it. All right. Then, if you have established how big you're going to make the foundation, this will also tell you how tall you can make the building. Because in order for a tall building, it has to have a broader expanse. Even if it has a very deep foundation, if it's very tall, it's not going to be able to stand normally. This is all built logically. Now, if one wants to understand how a building stands, so he's going to get these facts. That there's a foundation, and on top of the foundation there is walls and so forth, and everything stands. if he has, and if he doesn't have any particular interest in this building, just want to make the building to stand. So you're going to have these walls and this foundation. If he has a particular interest in this building, then he's going to ask further questions. How are we going to divide the walls inside? Where are we going to put windows? Where are we going to put the door? What type of brick are we going to use? How are we going to lay it? Because if you lay it this way, it looks one way. If you lay it this way, it looks another way. In other words, he is going to be discussing not just the fact that it stands, but the fact that it is a building that's going to be inhabited and used by human beings. It's a completely different concept. To make it stand is one thing. To make it usable and to make it pleasant and it should attract and attractive. That's something else again. And the only way that he will get into that area is if he has a feel for the building, if he has an interest. This is beyond the seichel. This is already part of the oineg, part of the special affinity, special meaning that the building has to him. And that is going to, that can expand his seichel into all kinds of different things. Besides the detail, but he's going to, two people building a building, and it could be an identical building, and it has a completely different appeal, different attraction. Because one just did it to be Yetzer, to do the job, and one was did it because he has a chush in it, he has an interest. What does this interest, this oineg, come from?
From the soul.
What?
From the soul.
Right. Of course it comes from the soul. But before we go to that ultimate answer, in terms of human consciousness, in terms of how people think, in terms of how people think, okay. Think of it this way. Imagine a person is an engineer and he builds a building just to make sure that it stands. Why is he building this building? Why is he getting involved? To get a paycheck. In other words, there's something else, something external, something that has nothing to do with the building at all, that's pushing him to build it. He has no interest in the building. He's not building the building because he wants to build the building. He's building it because he wants to get paid. So the building is not really coming from inside his mind, inside his soul. It's coming from external reason. So that's seichel does not reach, does not based internally, but it's externally. It's not going to develop very far. I've done my job. What do you want from me? When is it that the seichel is going to grow and expand? It's going to grow and expand when it is actually rooted in him. I want this. I like it. When he has an idea and has a feel for what he's doing, then it's also up to seichel. But then that seichel will grow indefinitely because it comes from a deeper sense in himself. This is the oineg. Oineg is beyond seichel. Oineg is like we say, the essence of the person. What does a person have oineg from? That which a human being can have oineg from. Oineg ha-nefesh. Oineg, human oineg is a very high quality. We're not talking about pleasure from ice cream. We're talking about the pleasure of the soul. What pleases the soul. Pleasing the soul has to be something very, very deep, very meaningful, that the soul is touched by it. And then from that comes the seichel. How do I bring it about? How do I develop it and make it real, make it happen?
It can be like first you don't have an oinig, but after you like contemplating and thinking about this, and then it's your oinig.
It's possible. It's possible. And the way that works is that by working in it and developing it, he first realizes that really he likes it from a deeper sense. And that kind of reveals in him that feeling that he has for it, and that delight, that satisfaction that he has from it.
So you cannot build new oinig. What oinig you have, this is it. You cannot make a new one, but you can take something and connect to this oinig, like explain it.
Well, this is true and also not true. That's an interesting type of statement, right? You create new oinig, but where is it coming from? You're coming from your nefesh. You certainly don't create a new nefesh. So how is it that you're creating a new oinig if you don't create a new nefesh? The answer is that yes, indeed, the nefesh is complete and perfect, but it is hidden, and it is concealed, and you don't feel it. And sometimes you don't sense your nefesh to such an extent that you don't even sense that you want anything. All you want is that you shouldn't be hungry. You don't even sense any sensitivity of a human type. Remember the other day I asked the question, what would happen if you put a person in a capsule and give him all his needs and send him out in space and be disgusted over here? Subsequently, I asked this question someone else. I had to explain to him something. And he was asking me the question, yes, indeed, what would he be missing? People are so far, and they are so not in touch with their souls, that when you first present them this kind of question, they don't realize how absurd that is. And when you put a person in a capsule and you send him out in space and give him all his food, you really murder the person. This is tantamount to murder. Because a person's life and experience is in the world. To satisfy his bodily needs out in space, it's scary. It's like burying a person alive. But we are so not in touch, but we all have souls. There's no doubt that if you actually tested it, take a person who argues and says, no, absolutely, there's no difference. All I need is my food. And you actually put him in a capsule and send him out. it's not going to take very long before he starts screaming, "Bring me back! I want to be hungry. I want to live." There's no question about that. So, when you say there's that oinak, you can create, this means creating new oinak, because when it's so concealed and hidden, and we're not sensitive to it, it's like creating a new. It's opening up a window to the neshama, to nefesh ha'adam. So coming back to our Inyan, the oineg hanefesh, this is the motivating factor, that which brings everything to life. Seichel, even Seichel itself, is really motivated, even though it is completely logical. But this logic, without the motivation of the soul, of the oineg, would just fall flat. And this is what he says over here, that we can see it, the muchash, the growth of the seichel and the expansion of the seichel is because of the standard that he has in the seichel. What is this? What is the tainug add to the seichel? The seichel, as we said, consists of logical blocks. One thing built upon the other. The tainug, there one perceives not only the finished product, but beyond the finished product. What is the finished product of a house? Whatever the house is. What is beyond the finished product? If you build a house, let's say an engineer builds a house, and the house stands there, it never gets sold, it never gets inhabited, it never gets used by human beings. He got paid for his work. But it doesn't get sold. Even if it doesn't get sold, not because of any fault of his, he designed a perfect house. But what happened was that this neighborhood got flooded. Whatever it is. People don't want to move in there. Not because of ill design of anything. He never saw the full fruit of his labor. The fruit of his labor is not just the building of the house. It is building the house, and human beings should inhabit it and have happy lives. Should have pleasure from living in this house. This same engineer, he passes by the street and he sees, people living in the house and decorating it and bringing furniture and children playing around. That gives him a real sense of what he did. It's beyond the building itself. This all is contained in that oinek.
So the oinek is always from the side of kedusha. It's always good.
Excuse me?
The oinek is always from the side of kedusha.
The oinek is right. Oinek is always good. It's not, there is oinek from kedusha and there is oinek from worldly things, but it's still oinek and nefesh. Nefesh is a positive thing. It's not a destructive thing. a nefesh that has pleasure from, God forbid, from destruction, is a sick nefesh. There are people who have pleasure from observing someone who's suffering and bad and evil, but these are sick people. The same, for instance, we are learning this inyanim. And we're learning about the koiches hanefesh. And we're learning how there is seichel and midas. And how the midas are supplied by the seichel. And how the seichel is supplied by the oinig. We can learn like this, and it remains on that. But if we have an oinig, if we have a pleasure and an interest of understanding understanding the human being, of understanding ourselves, understanding our own life, understanding avodah, then we have a much greater feel for what we're learning, and we are really. We will dig into it and try and expand on it, try to know more and more about it. All right. Okmoi came ben midois. This is also true. This is true about the seichel. That the seichel depends on the oineg to give it, to enrich it. I'm going to give you more of a tangible sense of this. What we discussed before in the house, let's talk about the table, something that we are in touch all the time. A table is a board with 4 legs. So somebody asks you, what's a table? And you'll say, it's a board with 4 legs. It'd be true. You didn't lie. But is that what a table is? This is only the structure of it. This is how you make it. This is the walls of the house. If you don't have a feel for it, you don't have any sense of value of what it is, that's how you're going to describe it. But if you have a sense of value for it, you say, well, table, this is part of a way a human being lives and does anything. This is how, when you have a table to put your sefer in, you can concentrate, you don't have to be worried about the sefer falling out of your hands. You can freely concentrate on what you're learning and what you're davening. You can put your food down without having to hold it so that you can enjoy your food. A table is a human necessity, not 4 legs and a board and a book. So if you have the sense of value of it, especially if you have, let's say, if somebody learns, if somebody learns, okay, learns maybe is a good example, but somebody learns and he has learned. Somebody sat and learned for 2 hours, 3 hours straight, and he had a very good learning session. The table upon which he sat, he has a very special feel for the table. The room in which he sat, he has a very special feeling for the room. Even though the learning was done with his head, but this is what made it possible. This is what made it, what facilitated. It was the table became part of the whole experience. So this means that the entire experience is not just the learning. The entire experience is part of it. This is the oinek. Because the seichel itself doesn't know about the table, but the whole experience, the overall, and the oinek of it encompasses everything. Not only the sefer I was learning, and the page I was learning, but this place in the room, and the table, and the place, and the whole environment, and everything else. This is all part of the whole experience. For instance, when I was a bocher, I learned in 770. And I know the exact place spelled where I sat. So when I go in there, I don't remember what I learned in that spot, but I remember the experience of sitting there. You understand? This is something else. This is the same thing for everybody else. Everybody has less kind of experiences, whatever it is. This is part of the oinek. It's a much broader involvement than just the specific thing that you're doing. If you have an affinity for this yeshiva, it's not because of the things that you learned. It's because of the overall experience that you have here. Let's say it broadened your mind, it broadened your experience of life. This is what you feel and remember. So the oinek, this is the highest behind this whole activity. And without that highest, it doesn't tell.
What's the difference between love?
I'm sorry?
What's the difference between you love something or you have an oinek from something?
Well, this is different qualities altogether.
Because people usually say, I love this place. And then they not say, I have an oinek from this place.
No, that's right. You're not. That's right. You're never going to say that because oinek is not an activity, and love is an activity. And let me take it the other way. 10 years from now, the love that you had for this place, you probably forget. But the oinek that you had in this place, you won't forget. because that stays with you. That's part of you. Like I said, I'm going to 70. I don't remember what I learned in that place and how I enjoyed it or don't enjoy it. But the fact that I have an affinity for this particular spot, that will stay forever.
Can you say because love is coming from the seichel, and when the time passes, like you forget? So
That is true. Love comes from you. Oinek is something that is in you. That stays with you. This is not an external an activity. This is part of you. Like I said before, Oinek doesn't get aroused. Oinek is something which comes from you, and you express it. Love gets aroused because of some activity. Gets created. The seichel creates the love. The love and fear, Abba and Yira, Chesed and Gvura. When you say, I love this place, essentially what that means that I want to build it up. I want to see that it has what it needs. It's an expression coming out of you. The oinek is something else. Oinek does not translate in doing something. This is why for oinek has to come seichel and midas in order to bring it down to action. Oinek itself doesn't translate in action. This is something which stays with you.
Usually it's after action. After you do, accomplish, and then you like you build a house and you sit on the chair.
That's right. That's right. And what is the soinik? The soinik is because it touched you deeper. It touched your essence. That's why you have the oinik. But you had it all the time. And now you satisfied it.
And what does it mean oinek make you seichel?
The point to understand oinek and rotzen is very difficult for us to understand. I'll tell you why. Because there is no reason for it. We can understand anything that has a structure. What do I get out of this? And then we have to understand why I like it, why I don't like it. Oinek and rotzen are above seichel. There is no reason for it. It's not above Tamadas. To put it very bluntly, I want to eat so that when I'm hungry. So there's a reason. Because when I'm hungry, I feel uncomfortable. Okay. And in this way, we can explain almost every human activity. I want to learn so that I know what I need to do. I want to know what I need to do so that I'm not a failure. I will be able to make a living. I'll be able to live amongst people. Whatever I do, there is something that I can explain why. And therefore I can pinpoint what it is. But if you confront a person straight out, honestly, you want to live? Yes. Why? Tell me why you want to live. What's going to be the answer? You're a stupid man. What kind of question is this? What kind of question is that? You need a reason? It's everything. That's why we can't understand what it is. This is comes directly from the nefesh. This is in our world. Things that we can understand are all things that have their limit, a beginning and an end, so we can understand them. Haskell, you with me?
Yeah, it's just further on something.
No, I just want to, I understand. We're going in one Indian. This is pshat there. That when you have an oil against something, you can expand and expand on it. You understand the significance of this. You can talk about it a whole day, and then some. Because really, we can't identify what oil is. This is really a godly spark. In other words, it's a spark of truth, an essence. We don't need it's beyond explanation. And somebody asks you, why do you want to live? You say, I don't know, because he doesn't begin to understand what it's all about. Okay? And this oinek, there are different depths in oinek too, different levels. But in everything there has to be a spark of oinek, whatever level it is. A spark of oinek means that there is some place in this activity that I sense a value that does not need an explanation why. It's just the reality of it. If everything I do has an explanation why I do it, so it has a limited value. It's the reason for what I'm doing it. But behind all that, there has to be some sense of what I do just for its own sake. That's the spark of the oinek. Now, with that, I don't question why I want it. This is the reality I want. And this inspires everything else. A person who is not sensitive, who doesn't have that spark, and everything by him is explainable by the why, does not have a real experience of life. And he will have a difficulty understanding, why not go to a capsule as long as I'm not hungry? Why not? Because he hasn't touched to the core what it means to live. I had, the Israeli, unfortunately, in the Israeli youth, there is that phenomenon. Up at a certain age and up until the time that they serve in the army, they can't leave the country. So then they're stuck there, even though they don't feel any satisfaction in life, but they have no, they can't leave. After they serve in the army, They pick up their packs and they go. Where? Wherever my eyes are going to carry. Wherever. Just seek some meaning in life. This is so rampant. And so one time I had a conversation with one of these people who Baruch Hashem came back to us, but they were, and he says, you can't believe what I experienced. But I was looking at every crack and crevice, whatever, to get a sense somehow, a feel of something. He went into the desert. He went into the jungle. He was chasing snakes. He was chasing scorpions. Just to get a feel, what it means to live. He was kind of exposing himself to all kinds of different suffering in order to kind of get a feel, a response of what does it mean? What does it mean I'm alive? Where life is beyond explanation. It's not just because of this. And this is the pshat mokim sheli boy chafetz. His heart desires. Why doesn't it say shemoichi chafetz? Seichel tells him what to do. Because if the seichel tells him, there's a reason for it. And that's not capturing, a spark of truth. The heart, because the heart does not look for explanations. It just says, this is what I like, this is what I want. So this is where there is an expression of that spark. I want it. And this gives him, this helps him, this develops his seichel.
But what is make actually a person smarter, or only just focus on stuff and not disturb with other things, but like only make you more smart?
There's a phenomenon in halacha. In the Gemara, you learn Gemara, especially if you learn, let's say Nizik Gemara, and you learn Bob Mitzia or whatever it is, halachas of damaging or interaction or sales and purchases and all that. So much of the halacha is based on what each side could argue. I could have said, the concept of amigo, I could have said this, and therefore you have to believe what I said, these kind of things. And this is applied universally. We don't look, is he a smart man? Could he have thought of this? So how do you know he could have said it? He couldn't have thought of it. Means that's why he says this. How do you can tell that he's saying the truth? Because he could have said a better argument. But he's not smart enough. He couldn't have thought of it. So how do you give me some basic halacha on that? You make a universal halacha. What's the answer? The answer is that's something that touches you. You'll be able to think of all the arguments, of all the smartest argument that the big wise men of the Gemara could have thought of. Because it touches you. You ask me if the oineg makes him smart. If he has an oineg in it, yes, it opens up his mind. The mechanism is like this. I want you to understand. Just as a person can become stronger physically by physical exercise, a person becomes stronger mentally by mental exercise. Except that for mental exercise you need motivation. Physical exercise, do this, it's enjoyable. But to learn, you need motivation to crack down. But if he has motivation, if he has doing it, yes, he becomes smart. His mind, the exercise of the mind makes the mind stronger.
So it's not make the person smart in the second. It's like give you motivation so you build your mind, which time
Yeah.
you become smart.
Of course. There was a chassid from Alten Rebbe. You surely heard Reb Kusha Lepler. Did you hear Reb Kusha Lepler? Reb Kusia Lepler. Reb Kusia Lepler is a Kusia from the city of Lepler. Okay? This Reb Kusia is known as a big chassid. Kusha Lepler. This Kusha Lepler was a businessman, and he was not very bright. He was not a man with natural intellectual power. But he was a very big Yerushalayim, and he really wanted to understand Chassidus. And there was a story, he went to the Alter Rebbe and so forth. I don't want to go and deviate. And he worked so hard on learning Chassidus that he really became a very profound thinker in Chassidus. To the extent that the Mittel Rebbe wrote a whole sefer, Imre Bino, one of the deepest Sforim in Chassidus, for Kusha Lepler. He would have a unique understanding of Chassidus. And yet, in Nigla, he remained the same Am HaOred as he was before. So yes, it develops a mind.
So how come he don't have a oinik from Nigla?
He didn't have, because, like I said, the oinig is broader than just the seichel. The oinig is beyond that, beyond the experience of the seichel. It is what it gives me, what I'm involved in. And involved in Chassidus, he's involved in Chassidus. That gives him an oinig. In Nigla, he doesn't have an oinig. It's a different kind of a seichel.
But the more it's godly, he's have a godly soul, so he should like.
What?
The more it's godly,
Yeah, but it's more concealed. Godness is more revealed in Chassidus than in Nigla. Okay, let's go a little more. Ukmoi kein ben midos. The similar thing is in midos. Hakdolas v'harchovas hamido hu alidei hatainug. What develops the midah and broadens it out, it is because of the tainug that one has in the midah. Ukmei Avraham Avinu olav hasholem, like Avraham Avinu. Shohoi son midas chasdoi g'doyla ma'oid. His midas chesed was extremely great. He had a special affinity to doing chesed. Hina zehu alidei hatainuk shohoi oloi b'midas chesed. This is because of the tainuk that he has in the midas chesed. because he had the tainuk in doing chesed, and that's why his mitzvah chesed was so great. V'horaya, the proof for that is that he had that is tainuk that was behind the chesed. Shaharei, since that we know the kshalei hoyolei mihal hashpiyah, but that when he did not have anyone to whom to be mashpiyah chesed, to do a favor to, hoyo mitztair me'id, he had great pain. Right? We know the story of Rom Yeshua. What does that prove to us? Ve'ein zeh mimidas hachesed atzma. This tsar is not from the midas hachesed itself. Why? The inyan hachesed, because the principle of chesed is hu ksheyesh loy ksheyesh misha tzorech la'ashpa. What is chesed? When there is someone who needs your kindness, tzorech la'ashpa, he needs your hashpa as a chesed. Yisoyle b'midas hachesed. This awakens and arouses his midas hachesed la'ashpia loy. But when there is no one to do chesed to, so why should he chesed? The chesed goes dormant. Chesed is a response to a need. You see somebody in need, so you want to do chesed. Not such thing, I want to do chesed when there's nobody to do chesed. Avol sheyitzta'ir, but that he should have pain. Al heder ha'hashpo, when there is absence of hashpo, he has nobody to be mashpia. This is not because of the midas hachesed. Hu mipnei hatainuk sheyesh lei b'hashpo. That is because of the tainuk that he has in giving the hashpo. Or mashpia, and therefore he is mashpia, he gives chesed. Loy rag b'dei lahashlim hachisorein. It is not only in order to fill that person's lack, what he is missing, but because he has oinek in hashpo. That's interesting. What?
It's like a contradiction. It's like being selfish.
Being selfish, right? It sounds that way, right? In other words, he's mashpiyah to somebody chesed, and even though the hashpah chesed means because you're missing, you need food, and I'm giving it to you. But it's not just because of to satisfy your need, but because he has an oineg in hashpah. So you're saying this kind of detracts, reduces the value of your midas chesed.
This is Abraham Avinu, imagine.
Huh?
This is Abraham Avinu, imagine in our level.
Yeah. So this is why I said before the Ian of oineg, we do not. It's hard for us to pin it down. But makes us think of and say that he's doing because he has an oineg. Has an oineg in doing hashpah. So we immediately think of like you say, the selfish. I feel good that I did a good thing. Look what a good person I am. That I satisfy. I took him. I broke his hunger. That's not oinek. That has an explanation, self-aggrandizement, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in the first Perek. That that klipa, all the good that one does is only lahis yahir, to make himself feel good and to show up, to say, look what a good person I am. Because in klipa there isn't the true principle of oinek, a real oinek. Without oinek hanefesh, there isn't a real mitzias there, and there's no real mitzias. There's no real oinek. In kedusha there's a real mitzias of nefesh, and the nefesh wants to be mashpia he has an oineg in hashpah, this is not self-serving. This is not self-serving. Not self-serving. It's not for one's own sake. Let's try to develop it a little bit. Not much time. He has an oineg in hashpah. And we're saying it's not self-serving. It's not for self-satisfaction. What then is it? What is the oineg in hashpah?
He feels he'll do the right thing. Not for himself. He feels he's accomplished something.
That's also for himself. And he accomplished something.
No, not he's accomplished something, but I do the right thing. This is what I'm supposed to do.
God's will.
Take the I out of it. And understand the oineg in hashpah. There are two factors in this. I want you to think very carefully in this, okay? It's a deep meaning. There are two factors in this. Number one, that this is God's world. And in God's world, everything has to be satisfied. Everything has to be good. It should not be suffering. It should not be lack. And I sense the goodness that God has bestowed in this world. The great blessing that Hashem had given us in this world. And therefore, there cannot be anything lacking. Because there's so much goodness. But that's not all. This is one thing. There's another factor. If Hashem has created such a great world, and it's such a beautiful, great world, why is there lack? I mean, if I'm mashpia, that means somebody is lacking. So there is a lack. So that's kind of contradicts my perception of the world. What's the answer? The answer is that the beauty of this world is that there is a mashpia makabel, that the makabel is provided with a mashpia, so that you could see the greatness of the world. If there was nothing lacking in the world, the whole meaning of this creation of the world is that there is a mashpia makabel. If there was no lack in the beginning to start with, you wouldn't see the greatness. When do you see the greatness? When for every makabel there's a mashpia. Where do we see the greatness in the world? For instance, the apple tree is producing fruit. We say, oh, look at this bloom, the springtime, everything blooms. Let's say the apple trees had apples there all the time, 365 days in a year, all the time. And you wouldn't see the richness of hashpah, of it being given to you. When do you appreciate what's going on in the world, the richness in the world, that it's being given to you? Then you see that it's a rich world. When do you see the richness of sunlight? The fact that there is a cycle, there's day and night. Huh? There's time to sleep and time to wake up. And you're given light. So the oineg in hashpah is not a selfish oineg by Avraham Avinu. This is reflecting the richness that Hashem has in the hashpah that Hashem gives, in the whole concept of hashpah. And hashpah is not. If you think, oh, what Rahman is, he is so poor, let me give him something. So you recognize his poverty. In real hashpah, you don't recognize his poverty. You recognize he is poor. Why is he poor? So that I should give him. That's why Hashem has given me the schus to be his shliach, to give him. Because that's how the whole world is structured, so that you could recognize the richness of what's going on in the world. We need to eat, and Hashem has created apple trees. So then you could see it's a real world. If we didn't need to eat, so then you wouldn't see the richness of the hashpah that Hashem gave into the world. So when he created, he has a tainug in the hashpah. This is relating to the essence, to the godly essence in the world. And doesn't even recognize that this other person is poor. He doesn't. He has a chisaron. If you recognize that he has a chisaron, then, in a sense, you are better than he. That's not the sense that Avraham Avinu had. This is not the sense of hashpah. The whole experience of hashpah or makabel is that this actually represents the richness that the Rebbe should put into the world. That there's a mashpia on the Kabbal. That shows that this is a living world. Like we learned before, the fact that there is a combination of two things. Remember that? A combination of two things.
Combined.
What? Combined. What?
So come beauty.
If you come beauty, that becomes beauty. That's a mashpia on the Kabbal. A Talmud and a Rab, you would say a Rab, or he's got it, right? The Talmud never, he doesn't have. So the Talmud Rab has a bigger Rahmanas than the Talmud. Will give him a little bit, throw him a little bone. It's not like that. But the Gemara says, Habak Valke Mirabeisai, Mitalmida Yeshim Ekulu. That's the richness that's going on in the world. Yes, that's a real oineg hanefesh, because this is where he attaches, he actually senses the richness that Hashem created and put into the world. And from that comes the midas hachesed.
Here he says, Nashpo mashpia lo rak b'dei le'ashlim chisaron, ki im mipnei ha'oneg b'dei.
Yeah.
One that Ashpia, even person not lacking anything.
No. Person is not lacking. I can be mashpia. No. That's not what it means here. The person is lacking in his mashlim machisor. Otherwise, it's not a mashpia. Oh, lo rak bigdei lashlam. Not only for the sake, for that purpose, for that reason.
So he's lacking, but I give to him not because he's lacking.
No, I'm giving before he's lacking. But that's not
Not only because of that.
Not only because of that. that's not the full motivation for it. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that Hashem is mashpia to Kedusha and to Klippa. To Kedusha is mashpia upon him, because he wants to be mashpia. To Klippa he gives, that's called acherim, achoraim, b'chinas achoraim. So he's giving only al-Hashem Chesson. That's why he's turning his face away. He doesn't want to be mashpia. You're lacking, you need food, here, have it. There is only b'dil Hashem Chesson. But real hashpah upon him, that's not b'dil Hashem Chesson. That's because he wants to be mashpia. See? All right. The story is like this. I don't know, maybe you should turn off this. Yeah, just.